Continuing on in chapter 2, reasoning and proof. Now we are going to start with algebraic reasoning. So let's start off with a bunch of properties of equality. Now, this all works with if we let A, B, and C all be real numbers, so let's talk about each of these. The addition property simply says if I start off with A equal to B, then A plus C equals B plus C. So what you're looking at here is you're adding the same thing to both sides of the equation. The subtraction property says if A equals B, then A minus C equals B minus C, meaning we can subtract the same thing from both sides. Multiplication property, we're going to multiply by C to both sides. Division, we're going to divide by C to both sides. So those four are very similar to what you would expect. Addition, you're adding the same thing to both sides. Subtraction, you're taking it away. Multiplication, you're multiplying the same thing to both sides. Division, you're dividing. The distributive property we have talked about. So distributive property, remember, we are taking the number on the outside, multiplying it into each, and we would end up with AB plus AC. Then we have the substitution property. Substitution property of equality simply says if two things are equal, A equals B, then we can replace A and B for each other in an equation. An example of this would be if I had 2 plus 3, and I know that equals 5, then what I can remove is 2 plus 3, I can put 5 in its place. Another example, if I told you that X was 7, then wherever I see X, I could put 7 in. That is using the substitution property. A couple others that we need to hit on. We have the transitive property. Now, just like we talked about yesterday, the transitive property looks very similar to the law of syllogism, kind of in that way. If A equals B and B equals C, then you have A and C that are equal. So in other words, if something is equal to something else and that something else is equal to a third thing, then the first thing also has to equal that. An example of this would be something like this. If I said X equals 5 plus 1 and 5 plus 1 equals 6, then X must equal 6. That's just an idea that you could use there. Okay, that is the transitive property. Symmetric property lets you flip it around the equal sign. If A equals B, then B must equal A. An example of this is you could say something like 5 plus 1 equals 6, then 6 must equal 5 plus 1. The reflexive property is just that, like a reflection. It is the exact same thing equal the exact same thing. So 7 equals 7. X equals X. That's our reflexive property. Okay. Now, what we're going to start off with is we're going to look and see if we can figure out what property justifies the change. So we take a look, the way this works, look at the first statement and then to the second. And ask yourself, what did they do to go from the first statement to the second? Well, when we look at this, we would notice that they divided by 3. So what property lets me do that? Well, that is the division property of equality. Okay, let's go to the next one. I start off on my first one. I have AB is equal to CD. And if you notice what's different is in the second one, we add 2 to both sides. So that is the addition property of equality. If we look at the third one, the difference between the first one to the second is they have taken the 3 and multiplied it in. That is the distributive property. Okay, here on number 4, they tell me the measure of angle A is equal to the measure of angle B. That's the original statement. That's the given. And then they take and they flip it around. Measure of angle B equals measure of angle A. Now, when we look back, that is the symmetric property. Okay. On this next one, if you look, they start off with JK plus KL equals GH plus KL. That's the original. So then what did they do to get to the second one? Well, if you notice, they had to minus KL from both sides. So therefore, this is the subtraction property. Okay. On this last one, they're telling me that x equals y equals 2, so x must equal 2. So if you think of that one, you're looking at something that is equal that you can put in its place. So a equals b, b equals c, so a equals c. So that is the transitive property. Okay, so you should be able to recognize what all of those properties of equality are as you work through the process. Now, we're going to put this into an algebraic proof. So what you're going to do is you're going to work this problem out, making sure that you make it equal what the proof statement is. Okay, so you want to go from the given statement to the proof statement, working it out. Now, what I would tell you to do, you can do this one of two ways. You can do a step, then give a reason. But if you want to, you could also work the entire algebraic process out, then go back and give your reasons for each step. You are going to have to go step by step. Do not skip steps here. Okay, so let's start in. If I look here, the first thing I would want to do is I would want to add 4x to both sides. I want to get my x's to the same side. So my second line is going to say 7x plus 2 equals 23. What let me do that? That is the addition property. Okay. My next step then is I need to get rid of the 2. So I'm going to minus 2 from both sides. So I get 7x equals 21. I did that by subtracting, so that is the subtraction property of equality. My next step is now I need to get it to just an x, so I'm going to divide by 7. So I end up with x equals 3. That is the division property. Now, here's the thing. That is not what the proof statement says. The proof statement says I want it to say 3 equals x. So if you look, what lets us flip across that equal sign? So if you look back, here's our properties. Transitive property, no, that's 3 things involved. The symmetric property is the one that lets me do that. That if A equals B, then B equals A. So this is done by the symmetric property. Okay, let's try another one here. So on this one, same thing. We're going to work it out and give the reasons. So we start off. First thing I'm going to do, remember my goal is to get it to say x equals 1/2. So I'm going to start off here, and I need to take and multiply that by the 6. So that's going to give me 12 minus 6x. And what I did there is the distributive property. Okay, there's the first step. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to put these two things together, my like terms. So that would give me negative 16x plus 12. What allows me to do that? That is the substitution property. Because two things are equal to each other and I just move it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to minus the 12 from both sides. So now that gives me negative 8 equals negative 16x. That is the subtraction property. Then I need to do the division. So now 8 divided by 16, negative 8 divided by negative 16, is a positive 1/2. And that is using the division property. But that is not what my proof statement wants. My proof statement wants it to say x equals 1/2. And what allows me to do that? That is the symmetric property. Okay, and that is how we write an algebraic proof, going step by step all the way down until we get to the point where we can prove each statement and get the final proof statement. All right, that is our introduction to algebraic reasoning.